and I'm really excited to host all of you. We have people coming from various industries and diverse backgrounds, so I'm sure that this is going to be a fantastic discussion. Before I come to the panelists and I introduce each one of you, I would just like to give a little background of the discussion that we would be having. So, we are living in interesting times, right? And all of us, here are grown-up people, and we have been fortunate enough to live in the pre-internet as well as the internet era. And there is a clear distinction in the content and tech that plays out, right? So pre-internet, it was a one-way street. It was totally a content game. You produce some content and through various channels, you just push it through, right? But now it has completely changed. It is a completely different ball game. Now your consumer can rate you, it can berate you, it can engage with you, and sometimes can actually force you to rectify your content or even withdraw it, right? And that's precisely why technology plays a very, very important role in the content strategy. How you can actually tweak your content strategy, right? You can engage with your audience so that your content becomes more and more effective. So to discuss the same, we have, as I said, a very eclectic mix of panelists. So we have Mr. Rajat Nigam, Group Technology Officer at Network 18 Media Investment, and he had a long stint at Times as well. Hi Rajat, you are there, right?
Yeah, good afternoon all. I'm there.
Hi Rajat, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Lovely to see all of you.
Same here. We have Mr. Sandeep Bhargav, Managing Director, Asia Pacific and Japan at Rockspace Technology. Sandeep had worked previously at P&G, HP, and DXC Technology. I welcome you, Sandeep. Hi, how are you doing this afternoon, Sandeep?
Thank you, Siddharth. Good to be here. I'm doing very, very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. We also have Mr. Gaurav Nav, who is founder and CEO of Cora. And Gaurav is helping D2C unicorns scale. So a fascinating space to be in. Hi, Gaurav. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Siddharth, for that introduction. Look forward to today's discussion. I think in all of us, Sandeep's headphones are really, really center stage and clearly shows that he's from Rackspace. So, Sandeep, for we look forward to this discussion.
Great. We also have a wonderful woman, Jolly Deep Kaur. Hi, Jolly. She's a vertical business head at Utah Infrastructure, and she is doing very interesting work in her sector. She has a vast experience in IT and service industry. Pleasure to have you, Jolly. How you have been doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Siddharth, and I humbly take the compliment that you've given me. Look forward to a good discussion. Like as you mentioned, a very varied set of delegates today. My warm welcome to all of you. Look forward to a very good discussion today. Thank you so much.
Great. And finally, we have Mr. Sundar Madhakshira, who is CEO India of Resolve Limited. And Sundar has more than 25 years of experience in sales and leadership roles in B2B, B2C products and services. Hi, Sundar.
Yeah, hi Siddharth. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be on this panel. Look forward to a super discussion.
Great. So let's take the discussion ahead, folks. And as I said, we live in interesting times, right? And content and technology, they are like intertwined, right? How it started when it was purely a content game, and now it has become intertwined with each other. So let's start our discussion with talking to someone who is right at the intersection of these two, which is Mr. Rajat Nigam, Network 18 and Times Network. He has worked in both of these, and I'm pretty sure that he has seen a lot of both sides, that is content and technology. So Rajat, my first question to you, and to other panelists, feel free to join in the conversation. So my question to you is, while the advantages are numerous, right? We have all seen the advantages that tech, a confluence of tech and content brings in. How are the brands exposed to the technological challenges? I mean, when you integrate both of these, content and tech, are there any challenges that brands should be wary of?
Well, good afternoon again to everyone. And let me upfront say this is a very, very unique panel with experts from different fields. And normally, I don't get to see that. Normally, the panel would have industry peers, core industry peers per se. Though with the time, the industry is also shrinking, or for that matter, merging. Different industries are merging, particularly when we talk about the technology. Okay, coming to the subject, which is interestingly focused on content. And yes, technology it provides the whole support system, or for that matter, a companion to the content. Ever since the media as a industry or media as a business was rolled out. However, if you see the journey over last 2 to 3 decades, one change which has happened and which is very vocal is that television used to be called idiot box, and now it is called a smart television. So that is one change that has happened. Second is also what Siddharth you mentioned in the initial part of your introduction with respect to the pre-internet era and post-internet era. So the internet has been historically and so far that has been the biggest innovation which has happened globally, internet. And the way it was there, it was providing support, or for that matter, an auxiliary part of the business. It has gradually moved into the lifeline, and it is part of daily lives, not of the business. It is part of every human's life. So that has been the change. And that also is an indication of how the technology has changed its face as well as the face value, which has brought technology to be a called support system sometime back, to an enabling system, and now technology is a driver. So it's a for technology professionals or those who are the evangelists of technology. This is a very, very exciting time, and how that has changed. But all these things come with their part of challenges as well. So again, talking about the content industry or the media industry, typically I'm taking it for granted. We are talking of audio video content, not only audio, or for that matter, because radio is one vertical in itself, which has its own history and which has its own subject and very, very interesting, insightful nuances around radio. But then we'll focus on the audio video content together. So if we see last 25 years back and to now, things have moved from being singularism to pluralism. There used to be a single channel, early 90s. From there on, it moved to multiple channels, multiple genres, multiple languages, multiple audio tracks, Dolby 6.1, 5.1, 7.1, multiple platform, and then multiple devices. The moment the multiple devices happened, the SOAP algorithm had rushed in, meaning the moment each individual was able to consume the content on his device, the households, which used to be metrics then, changed to individuals. That is wherein we talk about concurrent users, we talk about unique viewers. Earlier, it used to be households, and again, television as a matrix, if we count from universe point of view, it is saying, okay, like India has around 240 households. But households is a irrelevant sort of parameter as we speak. And what it made, and why soap? Because households, each family member would have his own type or choice of soap, which currently we can all see. The same thing happened because each family member became a consumer in himself, meaning now the content generators, we need to cater to, instead of one household, we had to cater to 4 members of that household. Suddenly my game changed. Ever since the content was always called to be a king, It moved to platform because that is wherein how the one would be accessing it. So it moved in between to platform being a king, came back to content being a king, but eventually settled at consumer being a king. And today, consumer is the king, and the happy part is that we all are we all remain consumer. So, and consumer that too, who is so demanding, who is not at all loyal. I would want to consume content what I want on the platform which I want at a time when I want. I do not want to subscribe to only one type of channel or a one type of OTT or one type of it. I get a good content in anywhere, I'll move there. So it's a constant pressure to the content generators to continue innovating. What it means is the creativity is at challenge, continuous challenge. We need to continuously be different. We need to grasp what the viewer want. Continuously do the creative, the paradigm have shifted. The society themselves has become a co-producer of a content. The technology, the innovation which used to be one-off thing, now it has become routine. We have to continuously do innovations, disrupt or get disrupted. So it's a interesting thing when we talk about technology. When we talk about the core, it's a continuous. There is no settlement. It's an exciting life, and at times the anxiety comes as a company to the excitement. But then overall, it's an exciting thing to be in this place. For the newer brands or the newer players, what has happened? The experience has become a risk. The shelf life of the technology, the shelf life of the business model is so small that the experience, if I have got an experience of 30 years, I'm as good as someone with the experience of 5 years, because the technologies have changed, the business models have changed. So, which is a good thing in a way, which opens up the field to multiple players. At the end of the day, it is for the service of we all citizens or we all humans, and that is what it is focused as. That would be my.
Great. So if I have to talk about two key takeaways, and I would say that technology has changed from support to enabler to driver now. And why? Because society is the co-creator now, and it isn't like that brand is producing something and sending it, but it is a society which has become the co-creator. So in this changed paradigm, Rajat, what you mentioned, what are the top one or two things that you would tell brand to adhere to stay ahead of the game?
See, besides, so technology comes as a straightforward, and I would not call it technology because that is a hygiene. That is a so everybody has to be adhering to the changing technological models, or for that matter, solution. The two principles, if you ask me, it is, and when I'm talking of it's a business organization, media business as a whole. If we talk about two things, one is creativity, and other is the cost. So these are the two aspects which one has to continue focus, one has to continue evolve. How we could provide highest grade content, gratifying content to my consumer at a minimal cost, and that becomes the objective.
Okay, so creativity and cost is what a brand must need to innovate as well as keep a check at. Great. Thank you, Rajat. My next question would be to Mr. Sandeep. So Sandeep, as Rajat has pointed out, and he talked a lot about technology, and you are, I would say, in the eye of the storm. You are someone who is helping the brands with the tools that would keep the cost in check, as well as help them, give them enough bandwidth or enough room to innovate, right? So what are the tools which would counter, or I would say, which would help a brand in both of these, cost and innovation? So what are some of the tools that are in demand, and what exactly the purpose do they solve? Can you please help break this down for noobs like me?
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth. So, absolutely right. Technology, as you said, is an enabler and driver. And the big change there has been that the technology has also enabled people to innovate, right? Like I remember a conversation 10 years ago with the CIO who said, my board is asking me why do I invest in infrastructure that you need downtime for when I have WhatsApp that runs 24 hours and is free, right? Or Facebook, where I get all my information. So why do I need to have corporate messenger for and pay, right? So it has become enabler. It has become, a way for people to innovate. Public cloud platforms are a great way of doing that, right? Just as a simple example, like getting sentiment analysis on whatever you put out there. You don't really need to write code these days. It's available off the shelf from each of the major players, right? The second thing we talk a lot about, and we're really grateful to people like Rajat, who create content, and we call something called data gravity, right? So the larger and the denser the planetary body is, the greater is the gravity. And the more content you create, more data you have, and hence more costs and more question marks come about on how do you make sense of it, make use of it. So we have a media accelerator that we're seeing a lot of traction in the market that helps people optimize that data, lower the cost of keeping that data, and then making sense of figuring out like which ones, where do you keep, and how can you monetize that, right? So that again, the technology is the one that enables us to provide that for our customers, right? So those are the two things that I've seen, and then the third thing really is data and security are the two big features in all of this. But it's essentially for content creators, content consumers. At every step of the way, there is a data point. How do you use that, and how do you use that then to reformulate your content, to reformulate your brand strategies? How do you use that data and analyze that data using the tools that your public cloud platforms already give you? Has also become big business. And with that is no longer corporate tech environments centralizing data and centralizing analysis. They have policies and procedures and something called data mesh that is coming about. They're creating those centralized policies and centralized repositories, but then people can consume it, people can analyze it at different places in the organization. And so getting insights and taking decisions on that has become much more dispersed, which means that you're crowdsourcing innovation from the rest of your organization. And again, that is something that we have.
Got it. So before I ask you that second question, do you still encounter such kind of queries like why do I need corporate messengers, or the frequency of that has gone down? I'm sure that would have gone down quite drastically in recent times.
It has, and of course, as things leak out or you have security incidents, people do understand why do you need to protect certain things, right? And again, there also, like as people start using public cloud platforms, the downtimes associated with your traditional data centers, they have kind of started disappearing, right? So again, innovation has taken away that as well.
Okay. One more interesting question related to this. So at this, I would say at the life cycle of a company where it starts and it kind of turns out into a big MNC, at what point should they seriously consider coming to you?
We have customers, or we have companies who have just got initial funding up to $1 million. And we have some of the largest enterprises. So there is every company, whether it's initial funding, Series A, B, C, listing, at every phase, they have differing needs and challenges, and we have solutions for each of those, right? Typically, like, when people are starting up, they're going to see from Series A to B, they start acquiring customers, especially B2B. They realize that they have built up a lot of technical debt. The security and compliance postures need to be stronger. But at that point, they don't really want to spend their management bandwidth in solving those, right? Because their focus now is to create that impact and create more customers. And that's where a player like us comes in, right? And of course, when they become big enough, then they start thinking about what is core competency to us and what can be done by somebody else, and that's where we
True.
go. So the whole
Okay.
spectrum.
Okay, so rather than at what point of journey you are in, I would say it is the nature of business that you are in, and the kind of data that is at stake is more important.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Secondly, so India is, I mean, there are so many sectors in India which is booming. If you have to pinpoint to me a couple of areas of cloud computing that you are really aggressive on, what would be those areas, and why do you think that these areas or these sectors would bloom in near future?
So in India, I would say with the amount of startup activity that is happening and unicorns, they're all born in cloud players, right? They're all consuming cloud computing. So that will continue, right? The other is I would say traditional enterprises, traditional financial institutions, traditional manufacturing. Because what we've seen in COVID times is the inability to reach a data center, the inability to replace faulty parts, like our UPS goes down, right? And that really drove them to getting rid of all of that. I've seen traditional Indian businesses who said, even if I go bankrupt, I have this land on which my data center is. That is mine. Nobody can take away from me. Like, so the pride of owning an asset, right, was much more. Two, now, when they saw that they couldn't even reach that asset and couldn't continue their business, that has really driven the trend towards using public cloud platforms. And they've become more reliable. And they're being much, much more aggressive in India. Right. So those are really the two sectors that I see.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Now we talked about, we heard the views of someone who is at the intersection of both, which is Rajat. We have also heard something from, also heard insights from someone who is at the tech end of it. Now let's talk to someone who is at the content end of it, and which is Gaurav. Gaurav, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Okay. So Gaurav, when you get into a discussion, and I'm pretty sure that you can relate to Sandeep when he said that, why do I need these corporate messengers? And I'm pretty sure that you would be also, while discussing the content game, how to up that, how to make tweaks, you would be coming across, of course, from a content point of view, more than from a tech point of view. What are some of the do's and don'ts? And I'm talking about this despite the life cycle that a startup or a company is in. What are some of the do's and don'ts that you would prescribe to a client who's looking for technical integration in their content? So despite whether you are a company which has raised series A or B, or someone who is an MNC, these are absolute do's and these are absolute don'ts.
Perfect. Thank you, Siddharth, for that question. For the first 15 minutes of the conversation, I was wondering, did I join the wrong panel? Because all of you are tech experts and I'm the marketing guy, the content guy.
Same here, Gaurav.
In this conversation. So thank you for sort of shifting the conversation focus here. I've normally been part of panels where the conversation on content has been content ROI and not content tech. So this is the first time I'm hearing those two kind of coming together. It's like, you're taking, I don't know, something Chinese food and marrying it with Indian and trying to create a concoction. But it's as I can see from the conversation, there is merit in this. Now, let me step back for a moment. And I think I'm going to try and sort of say, demystify some of the things and make it a little bit more easier to understand for the non-tech audience who's probably watching this. First of all, if you really look at the content evolution journey, the first piece of content that perhaps you and I ever were part of was probably an old tale that your mother or your father or your grandfather ever told you. That was content, and it was delivered to us by people who were closest to us. If you look at the journey of content, right, back in the day, before all of the technology that we're speaking about did not exist, the only way of communicating that content was by telling each other. And then somebody discovered the art of a pen and a paper and they started writing it down. And newspapers came about. Then a very smart gentleman somewhere in the world discovered that you could transmit it over radio. And then radio was invented, right? And then you could hear news and advertising on radio. And then somebody figured out that, there's a cathode ray tube, and then TV happened. And then song and dance and, audio visuals came about. Today, we are living in the world of what I call as the 6-inch device, right? I probably have this closer to me than my wife. This is the last thing we see before we close our eyes. The first thing we see as we wake up, right? So speed of content has really evolved. But at the end of the day, it's just content, right? Everything else is a medium, it's an enabler, it's a device to that. So to all marketers who are listening, or all the tech people who are listening, my first advice to you is technology is an enabler. This is here today for us to use. It'll come and go, and something better will come. And the likes of Rajat and Sandeep and Sundar and Jolly will have the best of technology for us. It's about how you leverage that. So that's one. The second piece is, as a marketer, or as somebody who's running a business. I mean, if you're running a D2C business, you need to know what are you chasing. If I'm trying to chase you and trying to get in touch with you, a mobile phone is a great device. And then you need to then really see what are the platforms that users going through every day, like whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, and or any other OTT platform, or pretty much anything else. Thankfully, in the ecosystem today, there are very, very smart people who bring some great innovation using technology. I'll take the example of a certain very famous FMCG brand that used AI technology to get one of the stars of India to talk about a certain product or a service. If you've been following, you would know it was Cadbury's, it was Shah Rukh Khan, and how they were able to get him to say a few lines and then be able to customize messages for hundreds of retailers across India, where Shah Rukh was kind of, taking that greeting along. Absolutely beautiful idea, great innovations, very smart use of technology. But at the heart of it was the consumer insight that they were able to leverage on. So, my first advice to people is talk to as many people as you can who bring in a new technology. Don't put that email in the spam folder. Open that, pick up the phone on them, talk to them. They'll come to you with ideas, and then see if it's a right fit for your brand. So that's number one. The second is don't kill yourself and wait for the right technology to put your content out. Leverage what you have today. A piece of Instagram post or a notification also that gets us to order from an app is technology and content coming together through notifications. And the other extreme is there's a toy company called Lego, which made a movie about themselves for 3 hours. And that's the biggest piece of branded content that you and I, paid good money to go and see. Another movie that I'm familiar with is Mere Papa Ki Maruti. It was a 3.5-hour piece of content for a brand. So again, delivered through cinema and now through OTT. So, go out there, create content, meet partners, leverage technology, make small investments. You wouldn't fail. And even if you think you failed, don't worry, because somewhere out there will relate to the message, see it and forward it to somebody. Hopefully on a WhatsApp and maybe on a paid device as well, like Sandeep spoke about. So get yourself out there, create content, don't worry, experiment, make small steps, keep doing it enough, be true to your goal of your brand, and meet and talk to lots of people, and please attend panels like this, because some very sensible people come and give you advice.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav. And you talked about that insights, right? So coming from the content background, I can completely relate to it. I mean, you look at the ads that Spotify has come up with recently. I mean, at the core of it, it's a hardcore tech company, and its agile processes that it uses internally is respected industry across industries, right? But the kind of ad, the insights when you are with your headphones, you're stuck in traffic or in a sari shop, right? That was a beautiful insight. So integrate a tech product with the help of insight, conveyed beautifully. Yeah. Despite all of this, Gaurav, when you interact with your clients, do you encounter unnecessary requests? I mean, मेरे को करना है tech and content integration. I need to do that because my peers are doing it, because my competition is doing it, because this is talk of the town, because I need to get some brownie points, because I need to show this to my manager and get a promotion. Do you encounter such kind of requests? And if you, when you do, how do you kind of proceed with it?
Sure. The answer is an absolute yes. So there isn't a day goes by when I don't get a call from a client saying, "Hey, why are we not doing this in NFT?" Or, why are we missing the bus on connected devices? Or, why can I not? What's our metaverse strategy? I mean, that's the buzzword nowadays, right?
True.
We've all been in conversations like that, and I think my short answer to that is yes. We can do all of that, and maybe there are 20 other things that you haven't heard of, which I can bring to this conversation. But is it relevant back into your business, and is it generating ROI back for you? That's a call that both we as partners and you as business owners need to take. Sometimes it's good just to pull off a gimmick, but at the end of the day, one must apply a filter to say that, is it relevant for my business? Will my consumer be able to see this? And what is the takeaway that they will make of it? And will this, at the end of the day, either increase more awareness, better consideration, or enable sales for me? And if you pass the idea through that filter, sometimes the idea, the technology, which is not even existent, you might be able to conjure up that and talk to one of your partners who's maybe able to bring that to life for you. So my mantra, look at technology as an enabler, try everything, make small investments, don't shy away, and embrace it. Don't be afraid of it.
Great. So I think you are recommending a 3-filter test, which is like whether it is, I mean, do you see the connect? Is it relevant for your consumer? Secondly, will it reach your consumer through that tech, or it is just for the name's sake? And finally, what is the takeaway that consumer would be taking out of that entire experiment? So do this 3-filter test, and if it works, go ahead with it. Otherwise, drop that.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Gaurav. That was really insightful. Coming to Jolly, let's talk about Jolly and Yota. Jolly, from your perspective, how perception of technology has changed over years? You have worked across various verticals, right? And with different companies. So from your perspective, how the perception of technology has changed, and what role infrastructure would play in making organizations efficient in near future? Jolie, you are on mute. I'm sorry.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Siddharth, for asking me this question. I mean, I think from various aspects of how, content touches the customer. I mean, we've already spoken. I mean, Rajat put his points across, Sandeep has put his point across, and now Gaurav had very beautiful insights about how they look at it from a non-tech perspective. Of course, there are very, very many factors which have influenced how the consumption of content has increased. I mean, first foremost is the growing penetration of internet across the country. I mean, how we've been able to get connected to the rural villages of India. We have the smartphones, which are now in the hands of many of people in the country. I mean, there are more than 4 or 5 phones per household. A very valid point that even Rajat mentioned, that now the household is not one unit of measurement, but it is also the number of people, and there are different varieties that they have within the household. Then how the data, the pricing has changed. Geo changed the entire aspect of how content should be consumed. So these factors enabled a lot of the content creators to be able to proliferate their business. It gave them a good demand surge. Of course, pandemic added a exponential parameter to this particular aspect of consumption of the services. So these have been sort of, known, very, very known reasons why and how technology and the content consumption has increased over years. Even if you look at the CII report or the PCG report, they say that the OTT industry is yet to grow to about $15 billion over next decade. So that's where the entire concentration of content creators and distributors, where they are going. And to be able to consume, the technology is required not only at the creator end, it is also required at the user end. I mean, like we've seen the advent of how a smartphone has also sort of matured over a number of years, and at the click of button, even a person who is not educated can access content. From Yoda point of view, or from the service provider point of view, from the industry that I come from, and what varied shift we have seen is that now the consumers of technology, the likes of Rajat and Gaurav, they have now looked at it as one of the point mentioned was the data center was Sandeep brought that point across, that data center was a very priced possession of the IT households. So from that point of view, today they have become the business enablers. They're no more just an IT service provider to their businesses or to their end consumers. They have become much more say in how the business should be enabled, what kind of applications we should use, what kind of technology so they have now taken a step back from just being your IT help desk to becoming a business enabler. So from that point of view, the shift has been in that I do not want to invest into technology right now. I want to be able to use technology effectively to be able to address the needs of the business. So there's a demand shift from just wanting to invest as CapEx has moved to a OpEx-based consumption model, where I de-risk myself from making large investments. I de-risk myself from technology obsolescence. So these have been the shifting parameters on the technology consumption front. If you look at how all of this, if you're able to consume service technology as a service, you add a lot of benefits to your portfolio, like scalability, you have performance, you have agility, you have cost efficiency, which comes in because you can grow as in how your business demands. You take maybe one instance of whatever piece of technology you require and grow as per the demand of the business. These are the few of the pointers which I think have made a change in the paradigm shift of how they've been perceiving technology from a content perspective. The other which is a newish, buzz in the industry. I mean, even Gaurav pointed out that, being able to get insights into what your consumer is thinking, getting insights into how the content is being consumed. How is it that I could better it? How is that I could penetrate more into giving more relevant content to my consumers is where AI and artificial intelligence and analytics plays a big role. So this is where technology is enabling the industry to be able to utilize intelligence and insights to create much more relevant content to their end consumers.
Sure, great. Secondly, Johnnydeep, what are some of the, this is a question I asked Sandeep also, and I would like to know your views on it. So what are some of the sectors you feel that would undergo a sea change by leveraging your tech, and why so?
So, Siddharth, I don't think there is any industry left which is untouched by IT. I mean, today, if you want your business to grow, to be a global brand, to be able to address anytime and anywhere, technology has to touch you. I mean, that's the enabler. So, so whether it is BFSI, it is manufacturing, whether it is education, whether it is pharma, all of these industries are requiring, transformation from the digital journey to be able to address the needs of their end consumers. Of course, content is the king today, and if you see the OTT industry and the education industry, I mean, these are the largest content creators for us, and they are the ones which are going to require a lot of technology enablement, in terms of creating an architecture which is distributed form, so that they're much closer to the content consumers. With the advent of 5G, which is going to come in soon, the concept of edge data centers, where you take your data, your content, your application much more closer to your consumer, will become more relevant and more required part of your business enablement. So these are the places where where industry will require to channelize their investments in terms of looking at what technology they want to use, how they want to create an architecture which is much more significant. And all of this, if this is available as a service, it becomes much more easier for adoption, so that the experiment on capex becomes a no-go for you. That's what I think.
Sure. And my final question is that how Yotta is doing this de-risking from capex to opex, as you just mentioned. So how is Yotta doing it? What are some of the tools, and how you are bringing this content closer to people?
To give you a very brief background on Yotta, I mean, we're part of the erstwhile Hiranandani group. What we bring in with Hiranandani as expertise on table for us is that their expertise on land banks that they have across the country. And one very little known fact about Hiranandani is that they're also a power distributor and generator. They have a generator business, which is Edge Energy. These are very two important, resources required for a data center industry. I mean, that's the base of creating cloud, right? I mean, whatever you may talk about, I mean, that cloud finally has to rest into data centers. So interestingly, we created a concept of data center parks, where for us, it is important that we de-risk our customers from scalability point of view. So if you start with one rack, at our facility, you can grow to multiple of thousands of racks within the same facility, because we're not doing just one building, kind of co-location for you, but we have 5 to 6 buildings per campuses with power ranging to about 150 megawatt of IT load in these parks. So, from a scalability point of view, you have a premise which is allowing you to grow as per your business. Then this premise also needs to be technology enabled. So we have Yotta Tech Services, which takes care of the digital transformation journey of our customers, whether they want just to have managed infrastructure from the server's point of view, or they want to grow to a cloud, they take the cloud journey. So assessing them on how they could move to the next step in their technology, transformation journey, whether they want to create a hybrid cloud, if they're already a little matured industry, they want to create a hybrid cloud, keeping some legacy applications on-prem as co-located servers, and then moving to taking clouds, whether public cloud from Yotta services, or extending into the 4 big giants, whether it is AWS, Google, Azure, or the Oracle clouds of the world. You have everything available. Now, once you come inside the premises, the most important part is that you're able to go out without any, gates of whether gates of being inhibited by how you reach out to your customers. So from network point of view, also Yotta went ahead and took up the NLD and the ISD licenses to be able to enable network connectivity to our customers. So whether you want to connect through just plain internet, you want hosted internet bandwidth, or you want point-to-point connectivity, MPLS, or you want to bring in, private infrastructure connectivity within your facilities across the data centers, that enablement can be done by your infrastructure. So from that point of view, and then going forward, we made large investments across the country to have such kind of premises. Like today, we are live in Mumbai, we are going live in Noida in a few months from now, and then we have Kolkata, we have Gujarat, the gift city, then we have Bangalore, we have Chennai, a lot of these cities, and we have about close to about 100 edge data centers that we are going to bring our infrastructure services close to our customers. So this is
that's amazing.
It's a broad vision that we have for LoveTech.
Great. Congratulations, Jolly, on activating all of these. Now coming to Sundar, who is CEO at Resolve Limited. So Sundar, for people like me and Gaurav who are coming from content side, I have seen, I researched a little bit about what Resolve is doing, and I can figure that out that you guys are very, very aggressive on retailing in India. So while I know you go and you talk to these CIOs and do business deals, for a common man's life, what changes can someone like me or a common man can expect to see through these retailing innovation that you are doing?
Thanks, Siddharth. I think I'd just like to take a step back in the way I respond to this. I think we've been through essentially 4 eras. I think there was an era of trying to capture market share. Everybody wanted a bigger market share. Then we said, no, it's not that easy to acquire a new customer, whether it is a B2B or a B2C situation. So let's focus a little bit on the share of wallet, right? So then came the third one, which is that you might have all this, but given that you've created so much content and we've given it to our customers in so many different ways, there's a clutter. So to beat that, the way to do it is to capture the attention. So then we said, okay, it's the share of attention that is there.
Most prized possession.
Yes, about attention, right?
Yes.
I was reading an article just this morning about, forget about customers, how employees get distracted from their work every 8 minutes. So imagine that's the case with employees. You can think about the customers and how many things are there around you to distract you. So the share of attention that you can engage is very directly proportional, or your revenues are directly proportional to the share of attention that you can get from your customer. And which is what, all the panelists have said it in different ways about how they will potentially make it happen. But that's the end goal, for everyone. But there's also a reality, which is that, we are living in a subscription economy today. We are living in a subscription. It's not about ownership. It's about subscription. So you subscribe, or, and when you don't want it, it goes away. So therefore, you have to focus on 2 things. One is you are trying to find and retain attention. It's not just about getting attention, but it's also about retaining that attention and getting your customers to continue to subscribe. Because you might be delighted as a CMO that so many people have downloaded your app, but how many of them are, it's very easy to download an app, but it's even easier to delete an app. So how many of these apps are there and how many of these are getting used is in some sense the new market share, if I may say, that you really have, right? So that's a bit of a context. So if you look at at what Resolve is trying to do, is that we're trying to transform the way the merchants and the advertisers can engage with consumers. So at a core, it's an SDK which sort of rests on a mobile app, a consumer-facing mobile app, and it just turbocharges that app. Now, why do we need to turbocharge? Is because the app has become a very dormant thing. All of us have a lot of apps, but nobody is using it. We buy so many brands, right? It's an oxymoron that we all carry so many loyalty cards in our purse. If you have so many loyalty cards, then you're not loyal, right? So that's a situation that we're dealing with, and you're getting so many offers, and customers always bombarded with so many offers that he probably doesn't even know. So you have a credit card from a certain bank. They have tied up with a certain set of merchants, for instance, but you don't. You're passing by that merchant right there with having full access to all the benefits, but you claim you just don't know, right? So how do you make all this happen? How do you make that happen in a frictionless, and as Sandeep and others have said before, is that how do you make it safe? Because I think secure data is very, very crucial without intruding into somebody's space. This is what Resolve does, right? So a technology like this, for consumers, you can interact with anything, anywhere, at any time, right? And get a very, very omni-channel, frictionless experience. And as far as the merchant is concerned, it is about delivering that omni-channel, frictionless engagement with the customer offline and the online environment, right? And just very quickly, it's about what are the location triggers. So you are at a mall, you're trying to buy something. What will give you the best value for whatever you're doing, right? What do you do with image? Like you've seen something somewhere and you want to buy it potentially or know more about it, but it's gone because you left that place. So physically you moved out, but you can still with a Resolve capability, you can actually capture that image and do a lot of things about trying to reach it online. Because the reality is that the purchase eventually is most likely to happen on an online setup. Similarly, there are audio watermarks where you've heard a sound, and based on that, you want to buy a certain product that can also be enabled. And of course, the traditional QR code is already always there. So yes, I think we are headed for very, very exciting times in India. We've had our first set of discussions with several customers, and the only thing that we get asked is, okay, now how do we get started? Because this is groundbreaking technology that's coming to India, and whatever all the panelists said, I'm sure, especially Gaurav. By the way, I'm also a former marketer, so my heart goes to that, and it's all about getting that very interesting content that you will have to think instantaneously, right? And this is also about enabling the SMEs. So today we're talking big companies, big brands, who obviously have a lot of digital firepower, but just imagine those millions of SME organizations, right? From a restaurant outside your house to a mom and pop store, maybe one store, two store, five store, who have no way of engaging with their customers in the close proximity. So this potentially will enable all that. So very excited and looking forward to meeting all of you in person sometime and seeing how this works.
Great. So one thing which stood out for me, and I find that's very interesting metric, is your revenue is proportional to attention. I think that is something which they need to pay close attention to. My final question to you, Sundar, before we wrap up this conversation, we have already overshot this conversation, but it's such a fascinating that tell me how analytics from a tier 2 or tier 3, or say any small detail, does that have the capacity to change a decision in boardroom? I mean, have you ever encountered something like that?
I started my career with Unilever, Siddharth. So everything was about, what tier of the city are we talking about, right? And, then we used to call it Char Mahanagaron ka Tapman, right? So there were only 4 cities. But now when you actually look at the technical definition of a metro, it's 28 today, right? So I think the time now has come. And this is, if you've grown up and we're smelling the coffee, I think there is nothing like a tier 1, tier 2 city anymore.
True.
Right? And this is not my view. This is a view of hundreds of my CMO friends who have very similar views on this, because that's reality. Right? So the tiering, the lines are dulling very, very fast, blurring extremely fast. So my point is, I don't think we should be looking at it. Definitely, whatever data that you're getting, because of the digital medium that's available, it is practically not that important where a person is located, as long as you have a sensible way of delivering, whatever you have to them. Now, that is one. However, the urban-rural divide in the strictest sense still continues. We've got a very, very long way before we can have that conversation about urban and rural. But tier 1, tier 2 cities, if the findings and the analytics from there is not being taken in by a board, I think the board is headed for a very serious stuff.
Okay. So, I mean, keep a close eye either from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 is the advice that you would subscribe to, and you tell others to subscribe to. Okay, great. It was fantastic discussing about CAM with all of you, and thank you very much for dropping pearls of wisdom and talking about your industry. It was wonderful. Thank you. I thank you again for giving your valuable time and being part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you everyone for such a mind-stimulating discussion, and I'm sure our audience had a lot of takeaway from this discussion. And now we move on to the final session of the day on preparing linear TV for a digital-ready experiences. And for this session, I would like to invite Mr. Piyush Gupta, Group Chief Technology Officer from India Today, Mr. Neerav Desai, Managing Director, South Asia Harmonic and Company, Mr. Badri Prasad, Chief Technology Officer, TV9 Network, who was actually, due to some unfortunate personal emergency, was not able to join. We have Ms. Ru Edi Rivara, Group Chief Technology Officer from Next Digital, and this session will be moderated by Mr. Anil Vanwari, Founder, CEO, and Editor-in-Chief from IndianTelevision.com. I welcome you all, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dinal, and a big hello to everyone. Can you all guys see me and hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Anil.
Okay. Yes. Hi, Piyush. So
hello.
Yeah, hi. I'm Neerav. I'm actually, and is Ru around somewhere? Because I'm using my phone. Good to see you, Ru. I'm actually speaking to you guys from Cannes in the south of France, where I've been stuck for a while now because of COVID. Just recovering. Hopefully, I have my RT-PCR test today, and if I turn negative today, I fly tomorrow back to India. Just looking forward to getting back. It's been a month I've been away, and I've been stuck here in Europe. Anyway, let's get on with the session. Coming straight to the points. I'll begin with Piyush over here. Where is linear? I actually sent questions across to you all. Has the linear TV broadcast industry really exploited the potential of digital? That is, whether it's working from the cloud, whether it's streaming, whether it's producing on the cloud, every aspect of play out, archiving. Piyush, it's over to you. You know the subject. You just have to talk. I don't have to put the questions.
Thank you, Anil, and thank you for just passing this difficult job to me. Yes, of course, there is a paradigm shift. I remember the days when we used to set up a PCR just to roll out a live bulletin, and it used to cost us millions and billions of rupees and 20 feet by 20 feet space just to produce a PCR output, right? Now look at the technology. I mean, we have just, bring the whole thing down to a laptop with a 3x3 workstation, and you can produce a whole bulletin out of that place. For the guest, earlier days, you actually used to send a camera crew with a OB truck, right? I mean, just to stream it live back to your studios. Now all you have to carry is a smartphone, which shoots and stream at the same time. So of course, there is a big, huge difference over a period. It's all started with the tapeless, I would say, when we moved from tape to file-based system, whereas the workflows and automation has started kicking in, and now it is all digital. I mean, now it's about distribution, of course, is one other aspect which we need to talk about when we talk about linear TV. Is it a satellite TV or is it a OTT? I mean, that's just a delivery medium. But yes, digitization in itself has made the life easier for all the broadcasters. It's easy. Now the barrier has gone. Well, at one point of time, one has to have a huge amount of capex needed to set up a TV station. But now a person just having a smartphone can actually start its own linear channel, which is actually what has been happening right now. So there is a big, huge change, and it is getting exploited. One doesn't need a full crew. One can start earning from day one, So there is a big change, and it is, yes, getting exploited. It is getting evolved, and yet it is yet to see the peak of it.
I understand. So I'll come back to you on the 4K and 8K, 4K HDR later, because that's coming up with its own set of problems. You cannot really go back from legacy with mobile phones when you're using 4K and 8K, really. Though 4K, yes, and 4K HDR, maybe. But 8K and 6K, no. But let me ask this question to Nirav too. Nirav, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, so definitely I would, I would agree to Mr. Piyush's point that yes, definitely there has been a shift, and content owners, content producers have started using this very extensively. But at the same time, there is still, I would say there is still more to do, or probably the optimization on the overall delivery or overall content acquisition or streaming is still to be done. And probably technology companies who are into this field can help broadcasters, service providers, independent content owners to bring in and bridge the gap and try and have a converged systems which will help to effectively do more. Because nowadays, if you see a broadcast setup, they will have a uplink setup separately and a kind of a digital setup or a streaming setup separate. Both the setups are separate. Probably their ad engines are separate. They have a different team for selling the ad spots. They have a different programming team also. But while saying this, probably technology wise, it gives you an option to have a converged systems in order to have a single investment and do more out of that investment, because the new edge devices are also very, very powerful, and probably the end users or the the service providers are not really making use of it. So probably there is a potential, and probably in the times to come, it will still evolve more and more as the technology companies like us, our competition, we keep educating the customer, we keep conducting the workshops, seminars and stuff. So probably this will help to eventually better the delivery medium. Yeah, I mean, content acquisition definitely is one of the key point, and the content variance is something that these days the people are really keen to look at.
Thanks for that. It's a nice introduction. Well, Piyush was optimistic. You said there's still a lot more opportunity, which is good. That means there's a lot more work that Piyush and the rest of the CTOs have to do. And now I'll move on to Ru. Ru, on the distribution side, in terms of video distribution, how has the scenario been in your? I know you've got prepaid subscriptions. You've moved on to Head in the Sky, your SMS. You've started creating apps. You're doing a lot of stuff, but where do you think the cable and DTH side is on this front, especially considering your hits platform and your cable delivery? Ru, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
so I think especially if we look at the Indian subcontinent, right, with its diverse territory, terrain, satellite delivery and cable delivery are going to be your primary source of linear television. And that's not going to change in the near future. It's great to see the onset of OTT starting to really gain ground over the last few years, but that still relies on inexpensive and stable internet bandwidth, which in the big cities, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 is now pretty stable. You're still in rural areas, that's a different story. From a distribution perspective, having moved to digital technologies years ago, from a distribution perspective, we're very used to having to re-encode content, making it changing formats in order to support delivery downstream. So that is something that has been happening over the years. The shift to, I think pretty much everybody's now on MPEG-4, whether they shift to HEVC and so on. Those discussions are happening, but it's not the biggest push at all, right? At the end of the day, whether it's a HITS platform or a cable platform, their interest is in making the set-top boxes as inexpensive as possible, right? Simply because customers don't want to pay more just to see linear television. They don't understand what HEVC is going to give them over an MPEG-4 box. And the same applies upwards. as you start to look at higher technologies. For the vast majority of the market within the Indian subcontinent, we're going to stay consistent because it's very price sensitive. Unless there's a real reason to upgrade, people are not really going to do that. Your 4Ks, your HDRs, that's all the content mainly coming through streaming. Again, distribution, for us to distribute 4K content isn't necessarily economical. It's still not economically viable to do, right? I think Tata Sky tried it a few years ago with certain channels, with 1 or 2 channels, but again, it got shut down. But the economics just isn't there. There isn't sufficient consumer requirement in order to deliver that type of content, at least over satellite. Cable is a different story. Cable can be done, but again, the consumer demand doesn't seem to be there at the moment.
Okay, what about your backend? Have you all managed to sort that out fully? You've got prepaid, ways of payment gateways. You've got is everything on the cloud for you all, the entire SMS infrastructure, or is it still not there? Are you all still waiting to get there? I mean, can you, on the click of a button, add on a sub, take out a sub, or there's still some distance to go, right?
So I think actually NTO really pushed the distribution industry to really automate all of that stuff, put as much of it into the cloud as possible, right? As part of NTO 1, the TRAI mandated all of us to have mobile apps for our consumers, for our operators, which is something that, to be honest, Next Digital had already started many years before that. So it's great now that everything is much more automated. There's still always ways to improve. That goes without saying. But it's now a much easier consumer environment, even for the operators, sort of across the country who have to interact with their MSOs to activate customers' packages, make payments online. Everything is as online as possible. That said, there are still consumers out there who prefer the human touch, prefer somebody to come and collect money from them. We support that also.
So you're quite happy with the way the entire cable infrastructure has responded to the digital transition across India, or are there still holes of opportunity?
I think there's always opportunity. At the moment, we're talking about the typical linear cable satellite distribution, right? What the industry has to realize is that whatever said and done, the younger generation does prefer OTT, does prefer linear, online streaming, has to understand how to sell that, how to integrate that into their offerings, right? There's still a huge learning curve, even on the ground, in terms of how do you do that? How do you sell OTT services? How do you bring customers to use other tools, right? Everybody has a smartphone now, right? How do you now monetize that smartphone to be able to deliver content that isn't only free, right? At the end of the day, as we said, the Indian consumer is very discerning, right? If they can get it free, they will not pay. How the biggest issue is to convert them into paying subscribers and get them hooked on for longer periods in order to drive also the digital revolution.
Okay, Piyush, I'm headed back to you now. Let me actually go to Nirav. So Nirav, you've seen the world at large, different countries. Where do you position India today? Where do you position India today in terms?
Latched onto the hybrid boxes. They are consuming content through hybrid boxes, wherein the box itself has it can be an Android box, it can be a kind of a proprietary iOS Apple box, or it can be any other OS. But then that's something which is there in other markets where they can actually use that for 4K, 8K. So for instance, in Japan, there are some operators who are already doing some 8K. China has a lot of 4K streaming, but as India, if we see, as Andrew also rightly mentioned, the consumer demand is not there for the 4K content. Or when Tata Sky and Airtel did the 4K transmission probably 4 or 5 years back, there were not enough TV sets being deployed, and they deployed about few thousands of boxes in the field. But now probably the trend has started to change. There are more and more TV sets which are being marketed as a 4K TV sets. So probably in years to come, we'll see more 4K demand being made, but that would be probably taken over by the streaming or the internet streaming media rather than the linear delivery as such.
Can I add something here?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I believe it's not a one-point agenda. I mean, there are the last mile, the endpoints, which actually creates a demand, right? I mean, even if you want to create a 4K, we know there is no delivery point. I mean, people have only couple of households have got a 4K TV, right? But there was a very interesting report which I was reading. There are now about 7 million homes who has actually got smart TVs. And now the definition is being changing from cable TV homes to connected TV homes. Now this connected TV is growing really, really fast. And as per this ENY report, by 2025, there will be 40 million connected TV, which will be available in all these households. TV household market is about 90 to 100 million, right? So about more than 50% will be connected TV. Once you have this end available where they can actually stream, so this takes away all your box requirement, right? So you don't need any set-top boxes, Tata Sky, cable TV boxes. You just need a connected TV. All the apps are available, and you can start streaming. Right now, only Netflix. I mean, that's my personal experience, which is offering the 4K content, and it's at a premium, right? So I think this is where the charges will start, subscription will start flowing in. People who will pay will get 4K. But the change is happening. There is a big change, and this is what it is moving to. And there is another interesting report which I read in Times of India. This connected TV, they do not use cable TV. 50% of the connected TV is actually streaming. So once this becomes a behavior, once it becomes mass, then of course your 4K, 2K, and all these aspects will be taken care of. And with 5G coming in, I believe it's more than the end consumer. It is more of a B2B practice which is going to happen. I mean, this is where, I mean, I may be wrong, but this is where I assume how it will be used. So the class B towns where internet is a big issue right now, with 5G coming in, kicking in, I think that will also be taken care of. Just to address.
So while you, while you stated, that live news has transited towards digital kind of a production, has entertainment production really graduated towards that, or are we still some distance away? Because not all producers are are really working on the fly like happens in other markets, are they? Especially on the entertainment side, on the production side.
Are you asking me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so of course, the production is going higher and higher. I mean, because now I think most of the production company, even in India, is not targeting satellite TV as their target audience, but the OTTs. And for that, I mean, they're producing content at a very high-end level. So I mean, of course, they're not going to use the mobile TV. They will be using 4K, 8K cameras, and they will have a grandeur level. I mean, they will be always very high. And I think this is a huge demand. I mean, and especially, with OTT coming in, there is no geographical boundaries of now a problem. Whereas a satellite TV will be, restricted to a certain spot beam or whatever the beam they have. But now with OTT, they are now able to, resell the content and republish it at various places. So of course, the production is going higher on that.
I know, but in terms of being able to metadata, meta tag it, and all of that, the backend side which is needed, being able to archive it, all those areas where not much attention has been paid in the Indian environment.
But that's not a recent phenomena. I mean, if you ask me, I have seen the digital archive happening about a decade back. I mean, when I did that, I mean. So the meta tagging and digital archive is not a new phenomena. It was already been happening. Like I said, from tape to tapeless, the day you became a file-based workflow, you actually started, storing the content in a file. So there is no generation loss. There is a meta tagging. Of course, now there are new techniques which are available. I mean, the processes which we used to do manually is now being done through AI and machine learning. Earlier we used to create those search keywords and meta tag while we are archiving. There was a team which was required to punch in all the data. But now with the help of machine learning, you are actually trying to generate that auto text. So that's the way it is evolving. So digital archive was always there.
No, I understand that, but I'm not sure whether it's consistent. Maybe in the broadcast network side, but not on the production side, if you get what I mean, the producer side. Normally they hand over the content to the broadcaster. That's the end of it.
Yeah, because earlier the model was the producer was producing the show for the channel. I mean, the ownership and the right of the title always, stays with broadcaster. I mean, there are only very few, publisher house which have now started generating content and they want to keep the rights with them. So whoever wants to keep the right, this is where they have to archive. The ownership lies with them.
Yeah. So the entire responsibility of archiving, you're saying, has been with the broadcast. Whereas going forward, there will be a need for people to learn in terms of archiving as well as meta tagging with the production house side. And of course, new production techniques are coming in. You're having your Unreal Engine, you're having production using disguise, set extensions, and all of that. So in that area, I think industry has been a little far behind. We've been maybe using Wizardy, we've been using some of the other, but we've not really expanded and really exploited the scope that's available for broadcast production, even according to me. That's my perception. I may be wrong. Please negate me.
I mean, you're right and wrong at the same time. I tell you why. Because, when you say these tools were available, but you see, just having a tool doesn't help. You need to have the skill set also within the people. I mean, if you have, let's say, SCP or Excel sheet, but you don't have people who have learned the Excel sheet, right? How will you use the tool? So you need to have a people with skill set to use that tool. So Unreal and Unity sort of graphics platform, they were not too popular. I mean, until a couple of years back, and they have evolved. Now those tools have already been made available. It is now free. There are, the tutorials which are available. There are forums which are available, whereas people can quickly go and learn and they start using it. So their shift is happening. So Wizardy at a point, there was a monopoly, that is true. But now with Unity and all, the skill set is developing. They have also have a couple of people who have also set up, to sort of education center to train people, and they're offering the tool for free. So it is picking up. Yes, it is a bit late, but it is happening now.
Yeah, then you're going to look at digital doubles. You're going to look at lots of things coming into television going forward. If you look at what Star Sports is doing in the current IPL, they're using a lot of GWiz technology, which we've not seen being used in television for a long time. So there is a lot of learning in that space. Correct me if I'm wrong again.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Not only in broadcasting, I mean, in digital platforms also. I mean, these tools, unfortunately, cannot be used in digital world, by the way. Whereas you actually want to produce content on the cloud and you want to generate a live stream and insert the graphics in real time on an IP-based workflow, these tools fail, by the way. So there are other tools which are available for us to actually generate real-time graphics in the cloud. So the production, when you're doing it all in cloud, so Unreal, unfortunately, or Wizards of the world, they do not actually support in real sense the graphics platform on the cloud. So they actually support baseband. So you have to have a signal in baseband to insert a graphics layer on. Though they are actually saying, okay, we have a couple of tools which is in coordination with the baseband product will offer you some solution, but it's not a full-fledged solution. So Unity and Unreal is not the only tool. I mean, just to name few. There are a couple of Israeli companies who have just come out and they are offering the graphic solutions like Singular. Singular is one of them, which actually offer the graphics on the web as well as on SDI. Vimeo is actually doing a lot, by the way. Livestream, which is earlier named Livestream, now taken up by Vimeo. So there are several products now available. So I would say, I mean, it's either you say ignorance or the availability of these tools. I mean, these both are not there.
Okay. I'm going to move to Nirav again now. Your perspective on this, on the production side, Nirav.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with Mr. Piyush that the production has not really moved onto the cloud, and primarily, graphics is one of the aspects or one of the point, because the cloud or the cloud companies which are there in the market are purely IT cloud companies. Amazon has done quite a bit of work, or quite a significant bit of work in terms of converting the cloud offering for suiting the media workflows, or to adjust to the media industry and the broadcast industry's need. However, if you look at the graphic engines, like Wizardy engine, it's having a dedicated graphic card installed in the machine, and then probably it's a very high GPU that is required. This sort of the machines are not really easily available on the cloud. Probably that's also, and those are expensive as well. So probably that is also one of the factor that people are not really keen or have not started migrating those workflows on the cloud. At the same time, in the Indian subcontinent, if you look at the TCO, people do calculate TCO on a 5-year plan, kind of a 7-year plan in terms of the appliance when they consider appliance versus cloud. Certainly, cloud is also coming with an expense, with a cost. So that's also a factor which we practically see in most of our customer interaction, that the TCO calculation is one of the key points, because it is directly linked to the revenue as to what additional revenue you are going to bring in if you move everything onto the cloud, or what is the savings that you are going to bring in for the company if you move things onto the cloud. So this is also one of the factors which is right now into the industry. A lot of people started doing something on the cloud. Some of them again went back onto the appliance because they found that appliance is more kind of it's in front of us and we have a control. We can do things. We can kind of do things immediately. There were concerns in the initial days regarding security of the content and other stuff, which is well taken care by the cloud companies and the OEMs and everything. So I don't think security is a point, but certainly the complexity of the workflows is a factor which is probably holding on the migration for the broadcast workflows or the production workflows to move onto the cloud. But there are some movements which is already happening. There are some customers who have started to work on this and started doing things on the cloud. Maybe it can be a kind of a small POC or a smaller project, but then eventually on its success, it will have more and more people doing that.
Yeah, Ru, no, this is to you. While we have a requirement of HD, 4K, not too much of a requirement for 4K, as everyone's been agreeing, but there is a requirement for HD. And there's also, most of the TV sets are really HD in India, while there is an offtake happening. So how are you going to manage linear, digital, and HD? You have to really work in a complicated environment as far as your customers are concerned. One hand, you want to have people paying you physically. On the other hand, you want people wanting to pay you digitally on payment gateways. It's a complex situation. How do you balance all this out, Ru?
Yeah, so it's not easy. I think as the story always goes with content, right? You always store the content and keep the content in your highest format possible, right? Yeah, HD is now the de facto standard for good quality video, whether it's OTT or whether it's linear distribution. Right? As we've already discussed, 4K still isn't there. And there's still insufficient content out there to warrant people going to that. As Piyush mentioned, the number of smart televisions that are coming into play is increasing month on month, right? Nowadays, you pretty much you can only buy a smart television, however small, right? So the need to be able to support both linear as well as streamed content is only going to increase, right? There is always legacy. There will always be legacy. We still have a huge population of CRT televisions, but over the next few years that will go. You have to have a solution for that, right? But that is it's slowly disappearing, and
it's a large audience out there. I think about almost 50% of the TVs, as is what some numbers say, are CRT TVs, and they only manage SD.
Correct. And if you look at it, if you ask any of the distribution platforms, right, the number of people who actually subscribe to HD content isn't more than 10-15% still as on date, right? The vast majority of customers are still only watching from a linear distribution, at least SD content.
Yes. Have I lost you?
No, I'm here.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so still 80 to 85% of the population are still only watching SD content from a linear distribution perspective, right? Even in the last couple of years, we've seen 3-4 HD channels actually disappearing simply because of lack of subscription. SD will always be the mainstay, right? HD will be there for sports, will be there for high-end movie entertainment. But for the vast majority of entertainment content, SD seems to be the stable base that everybody tries to achieve, right? With OTT content, yes, you have the advantage of being able, if you've got good broadband connectivity, you can easily download HD, 4K from any number of OTT platforms, either Indian ones or even international, right? But that depends on ultimately on your end device. And you have to be able to handle as many of these varieties as possible. That won't go away, right? We will, as human beings, will always invent some new device, some new technology, some new way of doing things, and we have to keep pace, and we have to be able to support as many of them as distributors or even broadcasters as we can. That challenge isn't going to disappear. There's not going to be a single format that everybody will support.
Yeah, and in terms of your own production, your own cable channels, how are you managing all that? Has that gone the broadcast way, which is the leading broadcasters like Star would follow, or are you still, in between what a Star would do or a Disney Star would do? Are you still the cable way? Are you somewhere in between?
So I think what's been really exciting over the last 3-4 years, and especially during even during lockdown, is the quality of content that's been generated because of OTT, and the production values has just is amazing. Even with very regional content, if you looked at the content that certain GSEs, even popular GSEs, were creating 4 to 5 years ago, their production quality levels were completely different to what today you're getting out of an Amazon Prime or a Netflix or even.
Not specifically talking about you as a cable company.
No. So us as a cable company, as a satellite distribution company, while we have content, that's not our prime scenario. So we will never focus most of our efforts on that. We're not a broadcaster. We primarily take others' content and then put them together to create channels. Where you get the improvements is in the actual production qualities of the content that is getting generated. We don't develop and we don't produce our own content.
So there is no local news like you used to do earlier. All that is gone.
All of that is gone to a large extent. Even the number of local channels supported by cable operators we're seeing is not increasing. In fact, I see some of them sort of slowly disappearing. I think that, as Piyush said, nowadays, it's very easy to set up your own channel. There's so much software, free software, open source software out there, whether it's on mobile, whether it's on a PC, that you can create. They find it very easy to create channels. And if it's just a question of stitching together content, then it's not a very difficult role. Content creation isn't, as I said, it's not our primary state. Most of it is now moved to utilizing others' content and stitching it together to create channels that are of interest to the consumer. So I think a lot of these local news channels and city-wise channels have, in my opinion, have disappeared over the course of time. There's not much left there.
Okay, that's interesting. I thought they were still around, but it's interesting that's going. That's a broadcasters will probably step in and start, but even they didn't succeed too much in local city-specific channels. Am I right, Piyush? That very city-specific channels, which is the mainstay in America, has not really worked in India.
I mean, as for my knowledge, that's not true. I mean, vernacular channels are doing really well. Most of them.
I'm saying city-specific news channels.
I mean, city-specific, maybe initially. I mean, there's still a lot of streams available. Maybe cable TV is not working, but on digital platform, there are city-specific channels.
Sure, I get that. On YouTube and all of that, they've moved to transition to move to YouTube.
That's true. So on cable, it's not available anymore. That's true.
Yeah. So, Neerav, I'm going to ask you another question. The concept of a super app being bundled, which is what DPOs are doing, along with the linear services. What scope do you see in that, Neerav?
So for service providers, probably that's the way the broadcasters have driven the OTT distribution, I would say, because earlier, if you look at the traditional analog or the digital, even the digital television era that started, right? The service providers used to be aggregator, and then they used to have distribution points and LCOs, and for the end mile for the set-top box or whatever way of transmission. But nowadays, if you see the key broadcasters like Star, Sony, Z, all of them have their own apps, and they have not probably allowed the service aggregators or the MSOs to aggregate the service and restream it, because even the business model wise it does not make really sense, because eventually they also have to pay to the CDN, and then the revenues are not enough. So in order to have a direct access to the consumer, there are this new business model of app aggregators which have been created in the market, wherein the LCOs or the MSOs are tying up with this or signing an agreement with the app aggregators, and then app aggregators do a bulk deal with the broadcasters in order to give them a minimum commit of the consumer. So what does it mean to the solution provider? There's no business for the solution provider here. It's more like a kind of application creators who can create a super app and maybe give them a UI UX based on what they need, rather the local service operator need, and then have a backend tie-up with Hotstars and the Sony Lives and the Shemarus of the world, and have a single login or a single payment gateway for the end mile or the user, wherein if I am a user, I will just sign up for one contract, and in that contract I'll have all the content access, be it the cable, which can be for elderly individuals in the household, or the millennials in my house who wants to have a Netflix and Amazon Prime and other applications of the world. So for consumer, even Jio is doing the same, Airtel is doing the same, Tata Sky is doing the same, wherein it's
Tata Play.
Tata Play. Yes, sorry, my bad. Tata Play is doing the same. So yeah, so this is what probably is going to be the future, because that's where broadcasters will have a direct access to the consumers, and then they will have a direct revenues coming into their kitty, which is more like they're cutting off the distribution points or the kind of a taps which used to be in their revenue model. So yeah, that's what.
Ru, do you have a different view, or is that the view you're going to take? See, now you have Tata New launching, which is going to be an aggregator, super aggregator of everything. Tata Entertainment is going to come in. So, Ru, do you have a different? And then you have your Jio TVs. You have is Adani going to set up his own massive super app? I don't know. So, Ru, what's your view?
Yeah, I think the concept of the super app is interesting. But the fun part about anything that's digital and anything that's installed from a Play Store, it's very easy for the consumer to 1 month use one app and the next month use something else, right? Unlike cable television or satellite television, where once you've got the set-top box, you're kind of stuck with it. You've made the investment in the box. Moving from one application to another is very, very easy for the consumer. So everything is going to be based on quality, service delivery, and ultimately price. So you can have any number of these, but creating that stickiness for the consumer and stopping them moving to something else the moment, literally in a few seconds, that stickiness will just not be there. I think some consumers will want that kind of super aggregator application, but as consumers today, we know that you can go, most people know how to get to a Hotstar or how to get to a Z5 or Sony Live. They know what kind of content they're going to find in each of these platforms. Whether they want to install another app in order to find everything, it's debatable. I think that in time we'll see whether it works or not as a solution.
No, but if I'm a subscriber of InCable or your Hits platform, Next Digital, I'd like to have all my content available through y'all. I mean, I don't want to have another subscription, and I'd like it at a discounted price from y'all, preferably, because you will get a bulk discount from the sorry, excuse me, my COVID, from the app platform itself. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so for our traditional distributors, we are already working on OTT. We're already selling it to our consumers. We already have, they can easily extend their existing subscriptions from just pure cable television or satellite television to OTT in the same way that a Tata Sky and Airtel and others already do.
Tata Play. Please, Arit will not like you very much.
Yes, apologies, Tata Play. It's been too many years. It's been so yeah. We're already very much doing that. We're also working on potentially developing a super application for consumers that brings all of this together. But that is in development.
So you are agreeing that you need this super app.
I'm agreeing that some customers will want it, but I'm also hesitant that the fact that, like any application, it's very easy to, the stickiness goes away. It's very easy to quickly download something else and uninstall. That's it. How to create that stickiness is what we're working on.
Okay, great. Piyush, I'm going to get back to you now.
Sorry, I have a point to make. Yeah, I have a point to make. But when it comes from an app, right? So let's say you go into Tata Play app and you want to watch something on a Shemaru. So you access Shemaru from the same Tata Play app. So the stickiness is still there. The app still gives you the access to various content, wherein you have a single subscription, as Anil said, right? The consumer wants a single payment to be made or a single subscription to be made. It can be NXT, it can be Tata Play, it can be Airtel Extreme, anything, right? So for a consumer, it gives a ease of maintaining multiple app subscription. Instead, he would just pay once for a year or for a month, whatever, and then he will have access to all different content requirement that he may have, or his household may have, or she may have. So is that something which is not been very popular? Because these days, talking to various people, I see that this is the trend that is being in demand, and probably that's a new business out in the market, wherein people have started to talk to broadcasters to get the sort of an agreement and make a app aggregators or kind of app consolidators for then, and then they start approaching the mid-size distributors or mid-size MSOs to sell that as a product for their consumers. So maybe there are some MSOs who are having 100,000 subscribers or 200,000 subscribers. They don't have a reach to negotiate with all of the broadcasters or all of the app providers. So they need some sort of a mediators. So for instance, the Playbox, right? There is this. Yeah, so they are having this. There was in the convergence show last month in Delhi. There were a couple of guys who were doing this demonstration at the booth, wherein they have an app-in-app kind of a super app as a distribution point. So this is what we have seen as a trend that's happening in the market.
Ru, do you want to respond, or should I move
So
on to you?
I'm not disagreeing with Nirav. I am in total agreement that the trend is to develop these super apps where you can view all the content. You see, basically do searching across multiple applications at the same time, work out what content you want to see, and then get redirected to other applications. I'm totally in agreement. My only point with this move to digital and application-based technologies is simply that as a consumer, it's very easy for me to move from one thing to another. So it's really important for that the content and the user experience and everything else is really so attractive that it, and the whole, as I said, user experience, I guess, is so easy for me as a consumer that I don't want to move to something else, and I don't want to try the next super app, right? And you'll have lots of these super applications developing, and we'll see which ones consumers kind of divert to.
Okay, now let me move on to Piyush. He's not said much in the last few minutes. Piyush, you have super outlets. You have a television channel. You have television channels which are very popular. You have YouTube channels which are huge. You've got your own India Today website, which is huge. You've got content coming in from everywhere. So your workflows have to be pretty complicated because the duration of videos, the quality of conversation that the journalists have are different on every different platform that you're using. What has that meant for you in terms of technology moving towards your workflows?
It's huge. I mean, like you said, it's the legacy versus the new. I mean, if you really look at that, we had this legacy publishing business, which has been running on a very archaic system. And then we had television coming in. But digital, it actually came in and it came in really, really fast. We grew, I mean, in the last 1 or 2 years. So, so of course, we had our own challenges, and especially on in terms of content sharing between all these departments, because not only they're separate department, they are also geographically located at different places. So I think the biggest challenge what we had to face was to share content among all of them. Was one of the biggest challenge, and what is going on, because they actually wanted to keep an eye and what is happening. So we had to evolve, and there are process automations, various asset management tools, and we also have our own development team, whereas we had created the bridges, whereas if the automation, the company is not been able to offer us a solution, we written our own programs and we are trying to bridge those gaps. So currently, I mean, what we've been doing is, of course, among all the divisions, we had a common dashboard. They are able to see what is the contents which is coming in, because I think the biggest interest is what is coming in. So there is a huge force of stringers which are actually depositing their daily clips to us, and not all is newsworthy, not everything has been picked up. So we pick up only the news which is already been fact checked, and so there are process automation which we have to develop around it, and this is what we have provided to the team. So currently, I mean, the workflow is very simple. The assignment team has a dashboard. They clearly see what is coming in, where it is, and who wants it. So there is one desk which supplies to all.
Okay, so you have a centralized newsroom kind of a thing.
Yes, it's centralized but distributed as well. I mean, you don't have people sitting in one place. So we have various buildings and other teams. So they share this common dashboard.
Okay. And in terms of, do you see a scenario where there will be no boxes at all needed, where the TV itself will be the tool which will differentiate between what you want and what you don't want? Or do you see boxes continuing?
See, boxes would be available because, at the end of the day, the signal which is being generated is physical phenomena, right? So when you're talking and I have to pick up, the mic is a box, right? I mean, you can't have a system which picks up your audio without having any hardware involved. I mean, if you say, okay, I have a whole setup in cloud, can you pick up my audio? You can't. I mean, you either have a mobile device having this mic or a physical mic. So it's changing shapes, right? I mean, earlier I used to have a physical mic. Right now, I just pick up and put it through my mobile mic, right? So the boxes would be involved. It will be just changing the shape. Yes, the amount of boxes have definitely come down and it is squeezing. I mean, it may be the case that if I'm using 10 boxes today, maybe in next 1 or 2 years, it will be limited to only 2 boxes.
Okay. Neerav, what does it mean for companies like you all?
It means, yeah. So basically for companies like us, yes, as Vin rightly said, the number of boxes have reduced. The devices have been more and more optimized, more and more refined. So one device does many applications. So for companies or the OEMs, the business has probably shrinked. That's the reason why you see a lot of OEMs getting acquired, or kind of acquisition is happening. Even in the service provider space, you see a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening. So the business is shifting. So is the technology companies are also shifting their focus. So for companies like Harmonic, for instance, we have started to have a common unified development, which is common for our appliance solution as well as the cloud solution. So we develop the product only once, and then it can be deployed on-prem if the consumer requirement is to have on-prem, or it can be on the cloud. So companies have already started to optimize the resources, the development, the innovations that we do. And the innovations are more and more driven towards the connected world, or the next generation of streaming requirements. It's more OTT streaming, or we call it IPTV 2.0, if it is going to the big screen, wherein traditional IPTV is more like a unicast delivery and kind of a dedicated streams and stuff like that. Sorry, it was multicast delivery. Nowadays, it is more like a unicast delivery, getting into the HTTP world and then streaming from the CDNs. So that's where companies or the OEM or the solution providers are moving their focus, moving their products, and that's where probably the next years we'll see the revenues are also going to come. More revenues are going to come from the online streaming rather than from the linear TV. This is the prediction that we have as a company.
Wow. Ru, are you listening to that? Ru, are you listening?
Yeah, I had to put audio off. My dogs were barking.
No, but what does that mean for your business, man? You plan to become a streaming company, not a cable company.
Ultimately that is the truth, right? The distributors of content have to evolve with the evolving technologies, right? We have to be able to support all the existing technologies, but we have to keep looking forward, right? As we move towards more digital delivery streams, and people having connected boxes, the reality is going to be that we have to move into that digital space.
Well, he said the boxes are going to reduce more and more. Probably.
Absolutely.
You won't need an STD. Your TV itself will be doing whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, and the televisions already, there are a lot of the CAS vendors, all of these guys have already been working with television vendors specifically to design televisions where the set-top box
software CAS. It's a software CAS.
Where the set-top box, where the set-top box is effectively part of the television, whether it's moving completely to an OTT streaming environment. We have to evolve as distributors of content with the technologies, but we also have to support the existing technologies that are out there that are still running, that consumers still need to use, right? So we have to keep an eye to the future. The reality is when in 20 years' time, how many people will want to be having a set-top box? Probably nobody, right? They want to be able to access content easily at the touch of a button, and we need to have got to that stage where we can also deliver content to consumers in that way. But that doesn't mean we can't. We have to stop. We stop supporting people who still have CRTs or require the delivery through other more traditional mechanisms. That will probably always have to. If you take Doordarshan, DD Direct, right? It's over the 2 years of COVID, its subscriptions have gone up, right? Now,
43 million.
Yeah,
43 million.
From 20 odd million, it's gone up to 40. Right now, that is your traditional satellite delivery. Now, unless you're going to embed that into the television sets, that's still 40 plus million customers that still need some sort of device, however big or small, that is able to receive that signal and convert it into something that is going into the television. So as I said, as distributors, we have to be able to handle all different customer requirements, from your traditional satellite cable deliveries right through to to your digital mechanisms. But we have to be able to, we can't cater to one without catering to the other.
Yeah. So Piyush, Ru said 20 years. Neerav, what's your prediction? And Piyush, what's your prediction? 20 years before we see boxes go away?
So India probably would take about. Sorry, I
no, it's fine. It's fine. I think you may want to answer the same.
Yeah. So India would probably take at least 10-15 years for sure, because India still have a lot of, as we said, a lot of CRT TVs running in, right? So we are still evolving. It's not we are not there yet. But yeah, in the global world, if you see, the shift has already started. Even if you see the live sports, right? It's almost comparable to your broadcast latencies that you see these days. So technology has evolved and it is continuously evolving. So it is giving us means to shift. Even in the COVID times, a lot of second TVs, third TVs in homes have moved onto the OTT consumption or the app consumption instead of a set-top box. It can be a cable set-top box, it can be a DTH set-top box. So there has been a reduction in those subscription revenue for all the operators. So this clearly indicates the new generation is, though it is not very kind of a long-term attachment or engagement on the apps, but yeah, I mean, the consumption is more kind of on demand, as in when they have a monthly subscription. So, on demand as and when it's required, it's just, they just recharge it, use it, and then probably after a month, if it's not required, they don't recharge or they don't subscribe to it. So that's the consumption pattern which is happening. And yeah, maybe in 10 to 15 years, we'll start seeing
You're
smart
more
TVs.
optimistic. You're more optimistic than Rupert.
Anil, but you also have to remember, this is not a one-player game, right? I mean, there are several players involved here. It is not only about the TV sets. I mean, even if, like we are saying, by 2030, more than 100 households will actually have a smart TV. I mean, again, the availability of broadband, uninterrupted broadband, that to higher speeds. I mean, how much it will be there? I mean, you are yet to see that. And I completely agree with you. It's only the major cities which has got this huge bandwidth available, at ease. But, there are class B, class C towns where if you go to interior, they still do not have fiber. I mean, there are several places I know. I have a bureau where they don't have a fiber cable. They are actually using a copper cable, right? So it's yet to happen. So it's all about telcos, and most of the telco also want to spend money where they actually expect money to come back. I mean, where the subscriber has a tendency to pay you more. I mean, they normally have a tendency to leave out the smaller towns. So I mean, the change is going to happen. It is a bit slow, and especially looking at the social economy, diversity within India, I'm not too sure that if we will ever be able to achieve 100% shift. To be very frank, I mean, this is very clear. I mean, and globally also, if somebody is saying the cable satellite TV will go completely, maybe they will change a shape. They will, limit it to terrestrial TV. But somehow my feeling is that cable TV is here to stay. It's not going to be vanishing to zero. I mean, it may be, come down to 10%, 20%, but I think it's still going to have a role to play.
So you're saying forever, right? Which is a good news for companies like Ruse, and good news for companies like you all who also still want to do traditional TV as well as do digital, have Facebook revenue coming in, have YouTube revenue coming in, have your own app revenue coming in. It's fabulous for the whole ecosystem. Hopefully the whole ecosystem can support it. And of course, you have to plan your CapEx, you have to plan or are you moving only towards an OpEx model as your transition towards a digital environment? All those things have to be considered, right, going forward for all of you all. Yeah. So basically, everyone's moving towards OpEx rather than CapEx. Correct me if I'm wrong. On a large part.
I see OpEx model works only if you have an inflow, right? If you are a subscription-based system, whereas you have a sufficient money coming in and you can actually take care of your OpEx costs, then it is, of course, a working model. But what about a company who has to invest now and expect the money to come in later? They cannot work on an OpEx model.
Sure.
So they normally have a tendency to take investment or loan, and they invest and then started growing, right? So it works, I mean, depending on the cash flow.
But companies like y'all, which have such a legacy business, I think your CapEx is going to go down and OpEx is going to go up, right? For y'all.
It is happening. In fact, it is already happening. Our software expenses, I mean, most of the software which we used to purchase have already moved on to a royalty base or a subscription model. So that CapEx has already got converted into OpEx. For instance, earlier we used to buy all those Microsoft licenses. Now everything is all subscription based. So in software and application, this is moving completely to OpEx. Now on hardware, I mean, we really want to have our own data center or we want to move to cloud. I think Nirav has already, picked it up, and like he's mentioned, it's all about ROI. If my ROI justifies my OpEx cost, yes, we are ready. So I mean, mentally we are ready. It is the ROI which is actually a roadblock.
Yeah, but then you have companies like Yota, which are offering you got AWS is lowering its prices, though it's giving a good quality. You've got Yota also coming in, the Hiranandani group. They're giving a competitive pricing and they're giving you similar kind of quality of service, as Amazon Web Service would give you. So who knows?
No, so
Will you
some
build
of
your
the
data
services
set?
are already there. I mean, it's not, but I'm saying, I mean, largely, when I say majority, when I cross 50% of my CapEx investment to do OpEx, then yeah, 10-15% OpEx is already there, right? On this AWS platforms and all those cloud
Yeah.
platforms.
Okay. All right. Ru?
Question.
Moving, the question is the same.
CapEx
I'd
to
ask
OpEx.
each of you the same question.
Yeah, I was here. CapEx to OpEx. I think reality is it depends on the piece of software or functionality that we want to deliver, right? We already run a lot of things in the cloud, but there are certain things which are time sensitive or data sensitive that we prefer to keep on premise. There are certain things that by law, by regulation, we have to keep on premise also. So it's a mix and match. To Piyush and Needham's point, it's a return on investment, right? Every time we have to buy a new service or a new product, we will naturally go out and check whether do the assessments of whether on-prem or on the cloud makes sense. So it depends on the solution, on what the requirements are. The best part is there's no hard and fast rule. It's not that everything has to be within the data center or everything has to be on the cloud. You can do a mix and match of both, and you do it basis what's the most economically and functionally best solution for the company. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule.
Yeah. Neerav, what's your observation on the global trend?
So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a mix and match globally also. So the workflows which are more static, which does not require kind of scalability, or for instance, the streaming origin, it requires a scalability. It's very uncertain. The events it will suddenly scale up, and post event it would be back to. So elasticity is something that is required on that particular function. So most of the app or the streaming providers have kept their origin on the cloud. So similarly on the linear workflow, the static is something which compression is static. So it will be more or less on-prem. It's only the variable part, for instance, DAI, ad insertion engines and all of that, which is more kind of a dynamic. Those workflows are moving to the cloud, and they are continue to run on the cloud because it's getting the revenue, and that is being compensated directly for the cloud payout. So that's a trend that we have seen. So it's a mix and match. A lot of people started with cloud, 100% cloud, but then eventually they started with converted the workflow into a hybrid workflow or hybrid deployments.
Great. We've crossed a lot in this 1 hour that we've been speaking to each other. So I'd like you all to encapsulate your thoughts on linear television, making the digital transition in a matter of a couple of lines as your last words, each of you all, beginning with Neerav. And where do you see the world? Where do you see the world going? How do you see transition? We've talked about it, but now encapsulate everything in a short, few sentences, and we'll call it a day for the session. Each of you all.
To summarize the session or my viewpoint, I would say India has started to evolve as a country, as a consumption pattern, and we see that eventually in years to come, maybe in 15 years from now, probably more and more consumption would be coming out from the streaming world, and the linear would has already started to go down, and probably it will reach to a steady state wherein it will continue to be on that plateau, and then streaming world would increase, and that revenue is going to be the prime revenue for the companies. That's my view on this. Thank you.
Okay. Piyush?
See, linear TV is here to stay. This is what I am a firm believer. It's just that the delivery, the mode of delivery is going to be changed. I mean, from satellite to broadband or maybe another medium is something which is already happening. And I mean, is it going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Is something it's everybody's watch. And yep.
Yeah, and also I believe that you won't need large teams. Like when people are using Megaphone TV, a product we've licensed to Star Sports for the IPL, for the Byju's Cricket Live, it requires one producer sitting at home on the remote. You can pop the question on television, and it can be answered by millions. And you need one person with one computer. That's it. One notebook. That's it. So things are going to,
of course, manpower will not be lost. There'll be other skill sets which they'll learn, and which will be put to use in the broadcast and media space. Not that jobs will disappear. Jobs have only increased after automation. That's what it's shown.
It's just changing shapes. Yeah.
That's right.
Skills
So,
change. Just skills need. It's just a question of changing. People having to be open to updating their skill sets, to the new technologies, to new ways of working, to developing applications, and understanding more IT-related ways of working. So there's always opportunities. I mean, you just go online and see how many different broadcast softwares there are that are being developed every day, right? Whether it's video editing, video production, graphics, visual effects. There's new stuff happening all the time.
Fabulous. Your last words?
So my last words, so I like Piyush and Nilava said, right? The number of ways in which people will consume content will only ever go up. New technologies will come along, new methods of viewing things. And whether it's broadcasters or whether it's equipment suppliers or distributors, we have to stay up to speed with what is going on and how people, and not just the technologies that are coming, but actually how people are consuming, right? And if we don't evolve with those new consumption methods, we are going to turn into dinosaurs. That said, that doesn't mean that we focus only on new methodologies. We also have to support the customers that we already deliver to, and be realistic that whether it's, and this is not just an India phenomenon, this is a pan across the world phenomenon, that some people will not necessarily move to other technologies, right? Or not even that they won't move, they may not be able to, whether it's in remote areas, not just in India, Asia, even in the US. Why is this whole satellite over broadband, broadband over satellite becoming such a big talking point? That even in the US and in Europe, the satellite broadband coverage is not across the entire country.
So you're talking about the LEOs. You're talking about the LEOs.
Your LEOs, your MEOs, and so on. Whether it's OneWeb or whether it's other platforms who are all trying to roll out broadband over satellite, it's because that coverage isn't there, and that is not just India. This is literally the whole world still has to improve their overall broadband coverage. So
great, thank you.
Me.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've learned a lot. I don't know, you probably guys knew all of this, and you're just repeating and feel like you haven't learned, but I learned a lot from you all. I hope you all had some learnings from each other. Nirav, Piyush, and Ru, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did too, and you didn't consider it a waste of your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Anil, and hope you get back to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dina, this is your moment to step in and tell everyone that this session is over. Anyway, if Dinal's not coming on board, thank you for being here with us for CAM. And it was wonderful having that previous session. I hope you in the audience enjoyed it too. And probably we'll end up meeting tomorrow too, if there is a session tomorrow. Dinal, are you coming on or no? Or Madhura, are you coming on? Just see with the camera a second.
मेरा फोन दे जल्दी से। वेट 2 मिनट दो मेरे को। इसमें ज़ूम बैकड्रॉप नहीं आ रहा है अमोल। अमोल well, thank you all for such an interesting discussion. And that brings us to the end of the Camp Summit 2022 Day 3. I would like to thank all the partners and viewers for taking out your time and join us today. And do not forget to join us for tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. onwards for the Camp Summit 2022 Day 4. We have an interesting lineup. You can check out the sessions planned out for tomorrow on our website at the Camp 2022 website. On behalf of IndianTelevision.com group, I would like to thank all the speakers and viewers for taking out your time to join us today. We hope you had a fruitful time. Do share your feedback with us. Use the hashtag CAM2022 in your post and tag our official handles. We can be found at ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook, and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. We look forward to e-host you tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. onwards. Thank you.